Thanks for joining me on another episode of the Elle-Sera podcast. Today we've got Julian from Propaganda. Propaganda is an amazing marketing company and someone who's helped me along my way with Elle-Sera's journey. Julian is got a reputation that precedes him. He was the linchpin behind GHD, is founder of Illamasqua makeup, and he's now the chair of GenM. So he's got his finger on everything in the menopause space. This is a great chat. He's got a lovely, sultry, dulcet tone to him. So enjoy. Hi, Julian. How are you?
I'm really good, thank you. Nice to be in Liverpool.
I know. Yeah, it's nice to have you. It's better than the drive over to Leeds. So
yeah, well, we did really well. It was a breeze today because it's half term, isn't it? So we flew over.
Did you?
Yeah,
That's
really good.
That's really good. Yeah, because it can be a bit of a nightmare. I remember the days of having to come up to your office. So for anyone who doesn't know, Julian is a friend of the brand. You've helped me on my path to success in lots of different ways. You're a great sounding board, loads of good advice. You helped me with marketing, and you're one of my favourite people to follow on LinkedIn.
That's nice.
Because every single day you'll put up something and you're quite opinionated and quite bullshit, much like myself, which is why I love it.
You know, I work on a premise of beloved or hated, not liked. Likes are benign.
Just pedestrian is not where we're at.
So if you're setting out to be liked, just curb that straight away. It's pointless.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So one of the reasons that you're relevant to today's conversation is you are the chairman of the GenM collective.
We say chair.
Oh, okay. Right. Gender neutral language. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
So, you're the chair of the GenM collective. So for people who don't know what GenM is, can you give us a brief explanation?
GenM is an organisation that, in a one-liner, we are the menopause partner for brands who are looking to get behind what is a zillion-dollar opportunity globally now. And one of the only opportunities that I've come across in my 30 years of being a marketer where the market really desperately needs the product. Too many markets don't need the product. And yet here we've got one. Markets crying out for it, 48 symptoms. As you know, some people say 46 or 49. Doesn't matter, does it?
No.
It's nearly 50.
Yeah.
Lots of symptoms, most of which have got no recognition, acknowledgement. They've certainly got very, very few products, yours being one of that few, that is there to help that time. So GenM, I think, is trying to form that marketplace in the same way that if you go back 30 years, the marketplace formed for vegans at the time. Vegans still, I believe, UK are about nearly 3% of our population. Yet there are devoted aisles, products, everything. They are well serviced, unlike the menopausal.
Well, exactly, which is like 50% of the population, or it will be at some stage.
So, look, there are lots of businesses in the menopause space. The vast majority are in the kind of workforce place, the kind of terms and conditions, all that side of the businesses, how they cater for their menopausal employees. We are not that. We are there to help brands through research, through getting them to collaborate, through inspiring them to go out there and form that marketplace. And it is a real success story. It wasn't started by me. It was started by Heather Jackson, who I'd known for some years, hence the contact, and a lady called Sam Simister, who was the new product development director down at Innocent Drinks. I think the story went that they had a chat one night, realised they were both probably perimenopausal and found comfort in that conversation. And that led on to the realisation that where are these products? You know, where is the market? They co-funded something that went on to be called the Invisibility Report. And that Invisibility Report unearthed 48 symptoms. And it is incredible what we, the girls, the team have achieved. It is phenomenal. Just shy of 100 brands now on a membership basis. Big players in there like Boots at one level. Smaller, you're not a startup, but to me...
no, we absolutely are. We are one of the tiniest brands in there.
One of the smaller brands, but we need the the plethora of choice. And then the people then that we are talking to as a result of those first movers, you being one, will soon have this up at hundreds and 200s. And then you'll know that the M-tick, which is a symbol that's going to just mark menopause friendly out, because there's no signposting again for this. Boots have been great on signposting.
Absolutely, yeah.
I got a lovely message from Heather just before I came on this with you, and she's just in Boots at Charing Cross, and there's a signal there for eye drops saying, look, if you've got dry eyes, this can be really good for you, and it's all menopause M-tick branded. So, yeah, we're changing the world, to be honest. It's one of the things I've been very proud of, and there's very few things that I think when you do get 30 years into this game and you look back, it's never the big financial triumphs that you remember, if I'm being honest. It's the special stuff that I've done, things like the Sophie Lancaster Foundation.
Yeah.
I suppose GHD, which was a brand that I created, or me and my team did the branding for at the outset, that will always be special.
Well, that's always, I was going to bring that up actually. So, I mean, that is like, part of your CV, that's why you're such a marketing guru. The GHD story is amazing. It did start with you and your team.
Yeah, there was little branding. I mean, they had no branding when they met us. It was in a pack, and it was called GHD because Robert Powell's wife had sampled the product and run downstairs screaming, "Oh my God, Robert, I'm having a good hair day." So, I mean, the naming process was simple. They didn't pay for that one. But when they came to us in a really bleak period very early on. There were 48 brands launched against them in about 4 to 5 months. I mean, you can imagine that onslaught.
I'd feel sick.
Everybody just seen what they'd done. They were first mover with the ceramic plate, and then they just traded. They didn't build a brand. They did something very clever, and I think knowingly, Robert only sold it to the very best salons in the West End.
Right.
So even though there were thousands of people wanting to buy that product locally, poor salons, average salons, he held time. That was good. I think our job would have been infinitely more difficult had he not done that. But when they came to us, the brief was, we've just got another 6 months of trading within which we think we can make £1 million.
Right.
And we said, what, you conceding defeat? And the answer was, look, we can't fight L'Oreal, Babyliss, Claire, everybody was doing it. There was the underwear model Caprice.
Yeah.
She got a line. Bang & Olufsen, the hi-fi guys, they'd done an iron.
Right.
Everybody was doing an iron. And there were 48 irons launched. And we said, look, you are first mover. And the marketing piece beneath that is, it's either beautifully simple, which I think all great marketing should be, and it's certainly not complex, but in that 18 months that they traded, they had made those salons incredibly wealthy. This was £120 at the time sale, of which 60 quid went in the salon owner's pocket.
Right.
And they were knocking out 30, 40 a week. So the salon owner didn't really associate with the technical brilliance of GHD. That was a given. They just thought that's another holiday.
Yeah, new car.
Or a Porsche Boxster on the drive. So when we politely pointed out to them that, and we did some research, the discovery process. Yeah. It was there where we found out that the stylist's word is God. Whatever he says
Very true.
to the woman in the chair, it's going to happen. And, we set up a logical process. If you tell the person in your chair that our iron is the best and that these 48 that are coming onto the market are inferior, and some weren't.
Oh, I bet they were.
Some weren't. Some were as good, and they were a fraction of the price.
Absolutely.
But if you tell them that GHD is the best one, they'll believe you. And you happen to be, and this is where the piece of work limiting distribution came in, they're all the very best salons in the country, and the press hovered around those salons. So those salons, to protect their income, and really it was protection from the high street, because that's where the other 48 went.
This was like influencing, back before influencing was like a thing.
Well, it's good. I'm glad you said that, because I've often thought, I think we turned salon stylists into influencers without using the term.
Absolutely, yeah.
And the result of that, when we did it, and it was more sophisticated in its delivery, but that year, under our direction, we took turnover, I think it went from 6 to 18 million. And at that point there, they brought me in on the board as marketing director. And we went to 30 and then 50 and then 80, and then it was sold to private equity.
Yeah.
And I suppose looking back, whilst they were wonderful years, the one thing it did do is it pulled me from my agency. I was given an ultimatum, and I'd let that client get too big for propaganda. I don't mind saying it. I'd broken every rule in the book. It was half of our income, and it got us by the balls.
Yeah.
So when private equity came in with a remit to do what they do best, and year one of the acquirer's strategy was to freeze fund max profits, I found myself in an awkward situation. And as a brand builder, I didn't really want to be part of a business whose primary strategy was to freeze all brand building.
Yeah.
So I famously resigned that contract at the time, something I don't think, or I'm told, no agency's ever done. Certainly not a £2 million contract.
No, absolutely.
Which is what it was at the point we resigned it. But GHD were special days.
Yeah.
And they were all encompassing, and we learned so much. But the work that we did, you can still look back at that work. I say it's the best work, the best brand to me of its decade.
Absolutely.
Without a doubt. And what people need to remember is, prior to GHD branding that sector, those products, there were no brands. They were known as white goods.
Yeah.
There was no emotional attachment to them. You plugged them in and they worked or they didn't. And I remember my mum's bedroom, she'd have a drawer for all of her white goods, curling tongs, this, that, the other, hairdryers. There was no association with them. You didn't think about them. And then this GHD came in your life, and we had everybody believing you couldn't live without it.
Absolutely.
We'd people fighting over the carrier bags in the street. It was incredible.
It's still an incredible brand now. And I remember being very, very young and going to a hairdresser's in Blackburn, and the lady coming in who owned the salon, very nice salon it was, and she said, oh my God, and she curled her hair with GHD straighteners. And I must have been 13, 14 at the time. And she was like, these straighteners are amazing, but you can curl your hair with it, blah, blah, blah. My mum bought me some then and there. And then I remember in all the magazines back then, the branding was so like sultry. And I remember you showing me when I was sat in your office, like the 7 deadly sins kind of like vibe. Yeah. And I still remember that as, you know, a 15, 16-year-old girl.
We were running some focus groups on the iron. One focus group was people who'd heard of the iron but had never used one. And the other were people who got one. And we were watching it behind glass, as you do. And this group was talking about how it was the best thing that its ability to just straighten chaos, all these things. And we went, you've labelled the groups wrong. And we hadn't. This was the group that had never used one, talking as if they'd used one.
Right.
I mean, and that's where the whole religious theme came in our minds. It's almost like, I'm religious. Well, how do you know? You've never met God. It was a devout belief system that the brand kind of created around it. And you know, the religious campaigning certainly went on under our tenure. It's fizzled out now. But you know what? I'm still really proud of it. It's under Coty's ownership now. And last week we looked at that, and I think it's now one of the most recognised beauty brands in the world.
Oh, it's got to be. And they make really good products still. And still my hairdresser, he was using a hairdryer on me, and I was like, I need a new hairdryer. He's like, get this one, it's GHD. And it is expensive, really expensive. It was like 150 quid. But I bought it because he said it's great.
Yeah.
And the quality of the products that they still knock out are still brilliant.
Yeah. I don't know anybody that's bought a Dyson one.
I have. I've got one.
Good?
Terrible.
Yeah, I mean,
terrible.
How do you lift it?
I've got the air wrap, right? And my hair is just too big and thick for it. So I spend I can spend literally an hour and a half on it, and then it'll just drop.
I think people buy it for Star Wars conventions.
I think they buy it because it's Dyson.
It's a lightsaber.
It's just, honestly, it's rubbish. It's no good. Absolutely rubbish. So I'm dead against it. And all Dyson hair tools, I'm just dead against, I just don't think they're any good. But there you go. We digress.
Good to see you buy them then.
They're always presents. They're always presents, not from me. Okay, so you're not a one-trick pony though, Julian. You've got many success stories, and you're not just chairman of GenM now, you were also the founder of Illamasqua.
Yeah.
And again, I've got fond memories of then you moving to Liverpool. And then I used to go to this club called Garland's that was like full of drag queens, you know, mega place. The Vivian now is a big success story from Garland's, still one of my friends. And they were all into Illamasqua makeup, and there was a big store in the Met Quarter. So I remember I used to go in and get my makeup done on a Saturday night because it was so. And then they met you a few years later. I was like, oh my God, yeah, you were the founder of Illamasqua. That's amazing. I remember it very fondly. So how did that come about?
So straight after GHD, when we came out of our contracted period, I'll get there. I received a call from a factory in Korea who'd always produced the GHD iron. But as part of the cost-saving exercise of the VC backer now, they'd moved it to China from Korea.
Right.
I think it was a pretty brutal move, and I think the Korean factory were thinking, I don't know what we're going to do.
Yeah.
So I brought together Robert Powles, who was one of the original founders who'd exited earlier. We were in the mix. Robert had his two sons who were real go-getters and hungry for something for themselves. And we then built Cloud9.
Right.
So Cloud9 is the competitor brand to
and I was
GHD.
just about to say, I'm actually about to say when we talk about GHD, Cloud9 are amazing.
So look, it was poacher term gamekeeper here because we were the only brand that ever competed against GHD, having built the brand, but we knew how. We knew the vulnerable spots. And it wasn't unethical. That's why there was a contract. And it also wasn't unethical because if the VCs that funded it were going to be as clear-cut as, look, this is business, then it's what they got from us. It's business then. And I think we did have a bit of venom coming back into the market for Cloud9. And we set that brand up. And at the time, I think we were we proved a point. I think we didn't want to see another hair straightener.
Yeah.
Styling iron, as long as we
mega.
could.
I got a free pair of Cloud9s, actually.
But I had a team of people around me who had probably done one of the better jobs of marketing to women and to guys, but predominantly women, ever. And you know, we didn't have the London budgets. We had to outthink, not outspend. Although GHD's budgets were good, they still were what I would call London level. So I had a team of people around me who I thought were the best brand builders for the female market. And I didn't want to lose them. But I couldn't find a client quick enough to fill them. So my brain thought, I'll do it myself then. I'll create a client. It had to be female-centric. And at the time, I set a study. I said, I'd like a challenge. Can you tell me which market's impenetrable? I've got to get fired up by something.
Yeah.
And they came back with, one was jewellery.
Right.
One was makeup. And I'm going to struggle to remember the third.
Right.
Might have been clothing related. Fragrance, thanks. Yeah. Little voice shout at fragrance. And in the end, I think the whole makeup piece was interesting because they said, strike that one off. It's a no-go area. It's a cartel. It's run by L'Oreal and Lauder. The two small players are Chanel and Vuitton. And you probably need £50 million and 20 year just to raise your head into that sector. Well, that's all I needed to hear. So, right, that's it then, we'll do makeup. And I went and hired a flat. I'm sorry, you've seen all the things about serial killers on TV. They've just got a flat somewhere with stuff on the walls. Well, I hired this flat. It was kitted out in, and I'll explain why, but lots and lots of Gothic makeup imagery. But I said, look, I can get, I think it was about 6 million. But I ain't got 20 years. It'll be 6 billion and 5. I think I picked a number out the air. If you go to the end, you know the score. We sold it to Hook Group, just over 20 million. Vogue, Mid-Journey, it said it was the most significant event in makeup for 30 years. And I think they meant since MAC emerged.
Yeah.
We couldn't keep up with demand, and every counter that you build can be £250,000. So no matter how well you're selling, the capex needed to fund the machine. So we took it to their Nook group of taking it on. But going back to the approach we took to makeup, I think as a brand builder, I have to say now, 30 years in, there's got to be a truth. I think there has to be a truth, whether it's efficacy of product in your case, or whether it is based on something real. And for me, I walked around lots and lots of makeup halls in my obsessive stage. I kept seeing the word professional. So it would be Bobbi Brown, professional. And I went to the boys and the girls on the counters and said, what's professional? No one can give you an answer. Well, Bobbi Brown's a pro. Does that make her the right person to formulate what are effectively chemicals?
Yeah.
For me, my innocent mind's eye, pros in makeup probably worked in a lab and wore a white coat. They had things like spectrometers.
Yeah.
So I got obsessive about proving pro makeup. And if you research pro makeup, it started in 1920s Berlin when the onset of Hollywood at the time literally was going to close what had been the theatre. The halcyon theatre world was Berlin in the world. It was the place happening. It came under threat, so it had to up its game. And I think that it went from amateur to pro. And prior to that, the actors would do their own promotions, their own marketing, their own costume. They'd do their own makeup. And the directors came in and said, look, just act and get better at acting. And when it got to makeup, I think they said things like, look, we can't have it running off under the lights. I need heat proof. Oh, and by the way, if we're doing Cleopatra, I want an exact chartreuse green. I don't want a near one. And all these technical briefs went in, and 2 companies were formed to meet the demand, and they were formed by chemists. And one was Illamasqua, and I loved that word. It just rolled off the tongue.
Yeah.
And the other one was Kryolan.
Right.
I tried to buy Illamasqua.
Yeah.
Only to find out I think Kryolan had acquired the name.
Right.
And I went to meet Kryolan, who at this point supplied TV theatre companies worldwide, and they'd 1 pro store in Covent Garden. And when I asked the question, do your formulas get into the hands of normal consumers? They went, no, we supply the pros. And I said, could I? Could I be the first to, and I think I said politely, contemporize the brand? I want to call it Illamasqua in a sentimental acknowledgement of where this comes from, the theatre world, because it's illusion and masquerade brought together as one word. And 85-year-old Arnold Langer, who I was speaking to through a translator, listened to this and went, yeah, we'd be very proud of you to do that. So when Illamasqua then went to Selfridges and we wanted Selfridges.
Yeah.
They over-indexed for our customer. And we sat in front of them and we said, we'll deliver theatre on counter. We had transvestites in 12-inch heels on that counter every day.
Yeah.
And we will, and because they know how to freaking wear makeup.
Absolutely,
You want to know how to wear makeup, that's where you go.
Well,
and talk
exactly.
to,
drag queens do phenomenal makeup.
And then on the other side, we also said to them, but by the way, if you don't have us, because we're going to make so much noise about the fact that we are the only professional makeup brand, if you don't put that on your floor, it'll be on Harvey Nichols' floor, and the noise will be incredible. And I think looking back, we sold that in so they could not say no.
Yeah.
They couldn't say no. And they were a terrific partner for us. They gave us the biggest footprint they'd ever given a brand, and we were a startup. Wow.
Is this in Oxford Street?
It just went straight into Oxford Street. It was huge. And on day 1 of Oxford Street, we looked incredible. And about halfway through that day, the phone rang. It's Courtney Love. She's seen, we placed 1 ad.
Yeah.
1 ad, I think it was at the early days. And it was in Vogue where it should have been. And it looked incredible. And it just said, Illamasqua makeup for your alter ego. And it had this drip white. It was theatrical to the extreme. Courtney Love ordered 3 of every single product on that counter. I think at the time it was the biggest order Selfridges had taken on makeup. And that was it. We were off.
Yeah.
And it bred itself. But we couldn't afford marketing to the masses but we didn't want to market to the masses because I'd been studying niche groups such as some of the fetish clubs in London, some of the goth weekends that they have in Whitby. All these things are not just small audiences. They were all, you could connect to them all for free. Mm-hmm. If they liked you, they loved you.
Yeah. They adopted
and
you.
And they were evangelists of us. So I think we saw them at the top of the pyramid, and then it began to cascade down. And I think the nicest story for Illamasqua was that one of the demographics that we did really well with were 85-year-old women were pulled to that counter because they'd not seen good customer service for 30, 40 years. It died. And they could recognise it when they saw it. But they also were greeted by people who were different, and they loved that.
Yeah.
And we had one woman come in, she goes, you know what, I think this is the place to try a really bright red lipstick.
Yeah.
Fantastic. That's what brands should do. They should change things. So, yeah, that was Illamasqua. It was probably the most passionate journey of mine because it was my money.
Yeah.
We had help from others. In the end, Joe Corey joined, who is... Joe Corey's Joe Corey.
Yeah.
He built and sold Agent Provocateur. He's an incredible guy. He just happens to be the late Vivienne Westwood's son.
Yeah.
But Joe became a great friend of mine and still is. And in the end, we were running it together.
Yeah.
So I've probably steered off piece there.
No, it's not. It's a really interesting story.
That's Illamasqua for you.
Yeah, and again, I think it shows your credentials in knowing what women want. But, maybe, I don't know, because we don't often have men on the podcast, but when we do, it's nice to get a different perspective. And now you're involved again. You're involved in a lot of health and beauty brands because maybe you do know what women want.
I don't think anybody's ever put it as linear as that. And I think, look, we have processes, so there's no great guru at work here. I think if there is a raw talent, then that might just be the way I'm able to manage and input into the end creative. I see myself more as a marketer.
Yeah.
And I think that as you get more respected and you get 30 years in and actually you stop chasing briefs that instinctively aren't right.
Yeah.
Which we all have to do for the first half of our tenure in this business. You take work, and on day one when you take it, you think the product's
it's soul destroyer.
You're a kind of person I really don't want to work with, but I've got to have your money. It's hard, but when your reputation comes and you get to that point where you can select your work, then guess what? It's a bit self-fulfilling because you only select the good stuff.
Yeah.
That's me being a bit humble on myself to a degree. But,
no, absolutely, but that is true. And
I wouldn't and couldn't write a book called How to Market to Women.
No.
I've got processes that could market to anyone, and I've got an interest in the softer side of products. I don't want to market tap from China. I honestly don't want to market a car, if I'm being honest. But there is something about cosmetics and fragrance and health and beauty that I just gravitate to. I mean, I remember one of my earliest memories was going in a caravan with my mum and dad, and they took some friends with them, and they had her daughter with them. And I got a kind of cowboy and Indian set, and she got a lipstick. I just wanted hers. I just loved the kind, and I used to be fascinated by the smell of my nan's powder and lipstick, just fascinated with it. So I don't know how deep-rooted it is.
Right.
And of course at Illamasqua, I'm a bit of a method actor equivalent.
Right. So
I wore makeup all
the
way through that tenure. I used to have this kind of signature kind of war paint stripe down here.
Right.
When I went to Bloomingdale's in New York, I got this huge kind of 10-gallon hat on, and I just had a pound sign written on one cheek and a dollar sign written on the other. I don't think they know what to fucking do with it, but we ended up getting the work anyway. So.
Well, half of your work now is, like we said at the top of this podcast, a lot to do with GenM. You're the chair of GenM. And I think one of the things that you talk about a lot is obviously we hear from women going through the menopause all the time, but now we're, as a brand, hearing from their partners.
Yeah.
How important is it to kind of lay this message out to men?
Look, the story I would tell you is a true story. My research has happened across a man called David Salmon. A year prior to us finding him, in the early days of GenM, he was only a few miles away from where we worked, but we found him in year one, and we went to talk to him because David's wife, David had not known why his wife, Linda, committed suicide. He had no idea.
Right.
And the details of it are beyond tragic.
Yeah.
But he knew that she changed. He knew that her zest for life and wanting to go to work had just gone. And he would, he'd find her crying, he'd find her dad, he'd find lots and lots of things. But he'd no idea, and no one had any idea, and certainly no one throughout all of that, weeks and months after, no one ever got near to saying, was she in menopause? Was that the onset? Was this related? Never even crossed anybody's mind. And then he was watching the BBC News, I believe, or I think it was BBC one night, and there was an article on menopause and symptoms, and he sat there and he started crying, and he knew at the end of that she was in menopause, that all the symptoms that they were talking about, he finally understood what she was going through. And of course, then year one thought away from, well, if we'd have known.
Yeah.
She wouldn't have thought she was going mental because those were his words. He thought she was going crazy. He goes, I have to work on the basis that had we known, she'd have still been here. Incredibly tragic.
Yeah.
Incredibly tragic thing to go through. So there's your answer as to why partners need to know, because often and I make it my business to know.
Yeah.
And again, rather like the conversation we had off air earlier, I don't want to get into the technical nuances of what's happening in the body, which hormones. Do you know what?
Yeah.
Stuff's happening.
Yeah.
I want to know what the symptoms are, and I want to be aware of it, and I want to know about it. I don't want to get caught up in a technical pissing contest, if I can say that, because this is what I see out there now in the world when it comes to menopause. It's who knows the most science. That ain't the solution to these problems. Science will play its role. What everybody needs. David Salmon needs it, and the 18 million a year going through it in the UK alone need it. They need help. They need signposting. They need to know they're not alone. They need to be seen. And the best vehicle for doing that is to commercialise the marketplace. And some people turn off from me at the point I say that, and they're wrong, because, again, go back to the vegan marketplace, look at health and fitness. When I was 60, we had something drop through our door called the Case Catalogue. And somewhere at the back of that catalogue was a double-page spread. That was the amount of paper it gave to health and fitness. There was a bull worker on it. Everybody on there were ripped. And I think women were used as a prop for the guy on the weights. It was intimidating. And the only other choice was to go to a gym that was already full of weight, pumped up men.
Yeah.
Look at it now.
Yeah.
Tech into the market, Peloton.
Yeah.
It's everything.
Yeah.
Food stuff to drinks to fashion, all of the thing online, offline. It's a vibrant marketplace. And guess what? In this world now, it's an easy place to go out there and get active and get fit and find something for you to do.
Absolutely.
You can do it at your home, you can do it at the club. It's certainly not limited. It's certainly not, you're not spoilt for choice, same bit. But that's because it's formed a market. Vegans formed a market. You're well served as a vegan. The only way that the menopausal market will be served right is to create it as a market.
Yeah, that's one of the things, the kind of objections laid at our door sometimes is you're profiteering off people's menopause or profiteering off our misery.
Yeah, and look, I'm sure at the start of the vegan market, when some of the food was crude, and it was, if you look back at what
It was corn, wasn't it?
Corn, and if it was square and white, and it never strayed from that. And it was probably pretty vile for the first 10 years. The point now with menopause is the products that are no good will be found out in record time because of vehicles like Trustpilot.
Yeah.
When I first looked at you, the bit that blew my mind was your ratings. I had never and still have never seen 5-star ratings in abundance, genuine ones.
Yeah.
I've never seen that many. That just means it works. But if 3 more Elle-Seras want to crop up tomorrow that don't work, they'll be found out within 6 months. They'll be busted in 12. The formation of a market will always attract get-rich-quick people with an unethical view that you can put crap in a bag and sell it. They're needed.
Yeah.
So I'm saying to these people that talk about meno washing, get on with it. Move through that phase.
Yeah.
Move through the phase. Because guess what? If in the end everybody's on a shelf at Boots or Marks and Spencer's, you ain't getting bought next month if you haven't sold this month.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you can't run a business that's growing year on year if people drop out faster than they come in, which is your equivalent. So the whole meno washing thing is naive in the extreme, and I think it is scaring people off entering this market who've got good product.
Yeah.
So that's not very good, is it?
No, exactly. You're absolutely right in everything that you say.
Yeah. So you. I mean, look. If I listen to Davina, and she has someone in her world called Kate Muir, look, they're great and they've done a really good job for it. But there's a but for me. They're too loud on the meno washing debate with other products, I feel.
Okay.
And that, as I've just said, is ridiculous. It's also ridiculous that they're as loud as they are on HRT.
Agreed with that too.
It's a choice.
Yeah.
Shouldn't be imposed on you. It's a choice. I know more. I get involved in more conversation with women that want a natural menopause. They want assisted. They want that kind of thing. They do not want HRT. And we know it's not for everyone.
Yeah.
And I think that's more irresponsible than a few brands going to walk into play with gimmicky products that are never going to work.
Yeah.
They'll come, they'll go, forget about it. Meno washing is a moment in time.
Yeah.
And there will have been vegan washing, and there'll have been sports and leisure and health care. Everybody will wash in the formation of a market. Yeah. The sooner it's out of the way, the better. So what we should be saying to meno washing is, come on, get on with it and get out of the way.
Well, exactly.
And let's have the great brands stood at the other end of it doing well. So it is factually naive of people to think they are protecting the menopausal woman through using that meno washing.
The only way innovation can happen is through more people entering the market, more competition. It makes everyone raise their game. If there's a load of other products a bit like mine that come onto the market and I think, wow, my God, I need to up my game here because they're doing something better than me. That creates something even better. We deliver, then we need to know we deliver a better service. Maybe we add on a few other things like a counselling session.
And who wins?
Exactly.
The customer.
Correct.
The client, the consumer.
Exactly.
And in this case, the menopausal woman. But you've always got to put that consumer first. And the consumer needs choice in everything that they do.
Yeah.
You've got to have choice. And actually, brands aren't for everyone. That's not a brand for me. A brand it knows who its audience is. The audience don't run into that like word.
Yeah.
They love the brand and they engage with it in many ways. Product being vital, almost a given, but there's you. They've got to like you. They've got to engage with you. They've got to do all the things about it. We know when we did the campaign, this is not a fucking pill. We know that it'll shut the door on some, but we know the ones that like that will love that.
It was actually not that. That was the most controversial one. It was the anti-divorce pill that caused the most issue for us, actually. And again, I put it up there. I said, thanks for your comments, but I don't care. That was actually born out of some of our Trustpilot reviews, which said, this saved my marriage, which was the natural progression of that. This is the anti-divorce pill, which you came up with.
What was the objection to it?
It was just like, this is tone deaf, ladies. This is ridiculous. I love you two. I love your branding, love everything. But this is, divorce is something that's absolutely horrible. It should not be made a joke of, things like that. And I was like, then you don't know what marketing is, because I'm actually here to cause a stir. And the fact that you've engaged with this is exactly what we wanted you to do, whether you love it or you hate it. The last thing I want is pedestrian.
Well, look, we said when we met, we had lots of things. And I said, better to be seen once and missed 1,000 times.
Yeah.
And sometimes that does mean that you're seen in a way that they don't like it. I've brands that I love, and I've loved them for years. And sometimes they'll do something I don't quite like. I don't throw them out. I sulk with them for a week and then fall back in love with them a little bit.
No, I kind of gravitate towards the more... Well, there's a lot of brands that I feel are just, I don't know, there's a lot of controversy going on. There's a lot of virtual signalling at the moment, and I just disagree with it. And it does make me turn off some brands. Does it make me start using it? No. Am I going to stop buying a Costa coffee? Probably not, because it's convenient. But, I prefer the more bombastic approach to advertising and marketing myself. I know it's not for everyone. I'm not for everyone. And I actually don't want to be for everyone.
Our campaign, so I've just been shooting some new video. You'll love it. And I go back through Propaganda's own campaigns over the years. And the earliest we could find, the rest have kind of vanished into the ether. It was called Not For Everyone.
Right.
And certainly from my own point of view as an agency owner, I don't want to work with someone I don't like. I don't want to work with anybody importing rubbish from China that's going to fill landfill. I'm too good to waste my time on stuff like that.
Yeah.
And also, I don't want to work with someone that's going to be a jerk with my team. And boy, have we had those over the years.
Yeah.
And thank God that I've always thrown them out. And I mean literally picked them up by the belt and thrown them out, because don't go there with me. You know? So we're not for everyone. If you want us to be subservient, go somewhere else.
You famously say that you don't pitch to people, and you can pick and choose the brands that you work with now. So how do you pick the brands that you work with now?
Okay, so look, the no pitching bit, before you get to new brands, I think that you've got to understand that the typical agency spends more time pitching, or an equal time pitching, than it does doing the work that it's been paid to do by people like you.
Right.
And I think that's just morally wrong. There's also a bit of a sexual turn on with pitching. I'm convinced there is, because why on God's earth would you want to do it? I've met ad men of old who enjoyed being in the pitch and lost. If I've fucking lost, I'm just going to go crazy. So for me, it's a nonsense. But before you get to pitching, you've got to say, why don't we give that time that we're going to give them? Why don't we give it to one of the clients that we're working with and do something they're not expecting? Simple theory.
Okay.
We've put that into play now for the past 15 years.
Right.
And we've turned down probably 100 pitches. We've never broke that stance once. And all of our client retention went up and client spend went up, because they like proactivity.
Yeah.
When a client ditches an agency, it's, you're not as vibrant as you was when we met you. We get no new ideas from you. It's all the same. Yeah, they're off pitching. So we have very little requirement for new business, because our retention rate is incredibly high.
Yeah.
And they're growing with us year on year. I think a typical agency might keep a client for 3 years. I think we, on average, we looked at it the other day, it's something like 12.
Right.
So it's a long time.
Yeah.
And that's only shortened, because some have been 20, 25 years.
Yeah.
Because we are brought in to help them sell their brand.
Exit. Yeah.
So actually, we're our own worst enemy. If we're successful on exit, the faster we're successful, the sooner they've gone. But I also think that the pitching debate is flawed. We believe in knowledge before assumption. All the great work, when I look back at how we've done it, it was all by doing it right and to process. Our process takes 3 months, 90 days. Mm-hmm. Can't do it in 7 weeks, can't do it in 6. It takes 90 days, takes 3 months. So there's no pitch on earth going to pay 3 or 4 agencies, whatever it costs to go. They want it in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So all you're left with is knowledge before assumption.
Right.
So you're going to come up with an idea that is untested, unqualified. It's not the best work, and the client will choose it on its instant merit. And instant merit, if I might say, is a bit like a funny joke. It might make you really laugh and you love it when you've heard it, but you're bored of it really quick.
Right.
So what jumps off the table in a pitch might be the worst work you could possibly adopt. Everything about it's fundamentally wrong.
Right.
And I think the other bit for us is when we've explained that to a client, most of the time they cancel the pitch, because I'll turn up at pitches and say this. I don't do it so much now, but I used to turn up, where's your stuff? I'm not doing it. I'm just going to tell you why this is a fucking farce.
Right.
That would be my approach.
Right, okay, that's your pitch. I'm telling you, I'm not pitching
today.
And
I'd talk about it, and then they'd say, right, go with him. And that happened a lot. Right. I don't really need to do it now. The reputation's out there.
Well, I was going to say, now, your reputation, people come and seek you out, you know. Okay, so we've spoke about some of the brands that you like to work with. Is there any brands you're out there, you're seeing at the moment that you'd love to get your hands on?
So, we're incredibly busy. Part of me wants to go back into makeup. I don't think I will. Part of me does, because we shook it up. And I'm still seeing ripple effects of Illamasqua. I think in the history of makeup, Illamasqua will be its effect will be far greater than we knew at the time. I think it sent every brand back to the drawing board.
Yeah. And
I think they went, how have they done that? Because we couldn't outspend. It wasn't an option. We outthought them. And I think that some people looked at that and thought, there's something in here, and we made it sexy. And I used to, so much of the makeup business or branding, I go back and I think about moments in time that have really moved me. And I think about when you used to wait for the next album from your favourite band, and that album came, and even before you played it, the sleeve and the sticker that fell out, and then the booklet that fell out, and on the booklet were photos you'd not seen. And at this point here, you're just in love with it. It's just incredible. I love that feeling. And I think that feeling's kind of gone from
I agree with
marketing. You do a bit of that when you put your notes in, and you don't cry, it's great.
No, yeah.
And I think that it's just gone.
Yeah, but I think marketing. That level of I think everything is too transactional, too quick, too fast fashion, too this, that, and the other. There's not much brand loyalty, especially with the younger ones who are just not. They don't take a brand into the heart, whereas like older customers will. They're a bit more thoughtful in their spending, maybe. But I try and create that kind of excellent customer service, loads of touch points, and then we haven't got deep pockets. We haven't got marketing budgets. We haven't got marketing budgets like Vitabiotics. So what we have to do, very similar, we have to outthink everybody else. Now we do that through human connection as much as possible. We try and make it personalised. We try and offer things they're not expecting and give them a level of customer service that they're not expecting. That's the only way we can do it. We need to be talked about by going above and beyond for our customer.
Yeah. Well, look, you can't create a brand evangelist, really. You could fund them, these ambassadors, whatever you want to call them. I think that's collapsing as quick as it built. I can't say I'm bothered. No. As a marketeer, I don't like the notion of saying to someone who isn't in love with your product, tell your audience you are. It just feels wrong. Well,
this is why I'm dead against it. I never have paid for anyone to say it. Yeah. Loads of times I've been offered. I remember somebody offering one of the loose women. She wants $4,000. I was like, she's never used the product. She's never heard of it. I do not want her.
And I made it really clear at Illamasqua. I said, if you are a celebrity and you want this makeup, then you're going to have to buy it. And have a think about this. Yeah. You're very well off.
Yeah,
I think you can afford it. The minute we said it, our counter was like a celebrity magnet. So you got every other makeup brand on that floor giving that product away to their PRs when they asked them. We wouldn't do it. And, they'd all be at our store. Amy Winehouse would be there, God bless her. There'd be Beth Ditto there. Courtney, every time she'd be there. You'd have the weird and the wonderful of it. Russell Brand would be there. All of the people, boys, girls, and all the wonderful creatures in between, the creatures of the night for us as well. It was a homage, and you don't do that by giving stuff away.
No, you don't. And it's hard because everybody asks me about going into influencer marketing and using this celebrity and that celebrity. And we actually have got a couple of celebrities that I'm actually considering. And the only reason I'm considering them is because they saw some of our ads. They bought our product themselves, have been using it for like 6 months plus. And then they've got in touch saying, I love your product. I'd love to do more for you. Yeah. And now that's the only way I'd probably consider doing it. And I look back at when they first ordered it and I was like, my God, I was only going 4 weeks then. Yeah. And they bought it then and there.
And look, I've no problem with celebrities being brought in to ad campaigns. No problem, because it's not a lie. Everybody knows they're in an ad. That stands for something different. That's the brand saying, we think that personality represents us perfectly well. And some of the best marketing work I've ever seen has been the choice of, I think Vuitton's choice of people in their advertising, the travel ads with the luggage, who they choose as being just wonderfully eccentric as the brand is. You know, I think all that's really great. That's not paid influencer marketing.
Exactly. This isn't getting the Love Island, girl just to say anything.
It's just,
it's cheap, easy, and it's not for me. And I've been dead against that. And I made that a marketing campaign that we do not do that. And I think integrity is few and far between. And it is harder. Yet our growth is slower than some of the other brands that just like go balls to the wall on celebrity branding. Hair burst vitamins, they just go balls to the wall on influencers all day long. But the product is shit. Absolutely shit.
How do you keep your eye on, ear to the ground on what the next... Somebody somewhere is going to turn over a stone in a forest in Borneo and there's going to be a little nut there that's the next... for all the right reasons, the next big thing. How do you keep looking for that?
Well, I try and I've got a vested interest. This is something that I genuinely like looking at, clinical data. And I was just talking on another podcast with a guy about a new novel food. A novel food is something that is not allowed to be sold in the UK. So it means it's not been used in food preparation pre 1997, May 1997. Don't know why they picked that date, but they did. So it's called testosterone, and it's having some amazing results in America with men. I think if you give it to women, you'll have some unbelievable results. I've looked at bringing it in. You can't sell it in the UK yet, again, because it's novel food. My manufacturer won't do it. So there are some limitations to it, but the early promising clinical data looks amazing. So I'm always up on it, and I always try things myself. If I thought it was good, I'd go into it. But
so I ask it because if someone was to say to me, what's the lifeblood of a brand? I always say NPD.
Yeah. What's NPD?
New product development.
Right.
And in your form, it'd be 12 months from now, there's a new ingredient. Join the other brilliant ingredients. And then 12 months after that, it doesn't have to be monthly. That's when it gets to gimmick stage. Yeah. It has to be when it's right. And when something is of a standard to go and play buddies with all the other wonderful stuff in that gold pill.
Yeah.
But, and again, I just think it's good because it's a form of newness without it being new.
Yeah.
It's just something else to learn about, to talk about. And it just keeps everything fresh. So, I'm a big fan of new product development. I think new product development is marketing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I think under the Elle-Sera brand, you could have different other... I mean, I just feel like I've not even scratched the surface with what is capable with this product. I have ideas every single day for so many different products. I love manufacturing stuff. Our free gifts that we give away are actually better than what some people charge for a lot of the times. I actually think manufacturing is very easy now. I've got it down to a fine art. I love it. I'd have ideas for stuff all the time, whether I did it under the Elle-Sera brand or I made a new brand completely. I think, So I'm always buzzing with ideas. I have to rein myself in a bit, but at the moment I'm just thinking about growing the subscription base, growing the loyalty within the customers, entering new markets. America would be one, and then looking for new product development after that. So I reckon in the next 24 months, for sure.
It's exciting.
It is exciting. Yeah. I've had a baby and that's pretty much taken up a lot of my time. But it's made me relate to my customer in a completely new way. I never really got it when they used to talk about, how hard it was with kids. I now get it. I get it so much more. I get the difference between the sexes. You know, Danny hasn't got the invisible mental load on him. I say this to him all the time. I'm like, you managed to go to work absolutely fine, and you never wonder who's looking after the baby. There's never a time when he wonders about a babysitter. You know, there's never a time where it stops him going for some meetings or going.
How is Danny?
Oh, he's absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, sending my best.
He's you know, his problem is he's got too much ambition, and he's just like growing business in so many different ways. I'm also at him to renovate our new house. So, but yeah, he's great. But yeah, well, thank you so much for coming in, Julian, to chat to us. That was brilliant. I think you've given us a great insight into the world of marketing, some of your tips and tricks and things that have worked for you along the way of your brilliant career. And I think you're doing wonders in the menopause space, not only for females, but men too. So Thanks very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Bye-bye.